The massive council chamber hummed with the usual diplomatic chatter. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from crystalline structures to gaseous clouds contained in environmental suits. The human delegation, dressed in their plain white uniforms, sat quietly in their section, looking unusually calm. Ambassador James Miller, Earth's chief representative, watched the current speaker drone on about trade regulations. His face remained neutral, but his hand tightly gripped a small device under his desk. Next to him, Ambassador Thompson checked her wrist display one final time and gave him an almost imperceptible nod. The premier speaker, a tall blue-skinned being, was discussing the proposed changes to deep space mining rights when Miller pressed his button. A small light flashed on the main podium, indicating Earth's request to speak. "The Council recognizes Earth's delegation," the premier speaker announced, slightly annoyed at the interruption. Miller stood up, his movement drawing all eyes in the chamber. The other human representatives rose with him in perfect unison. Something about their synchronized movement made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "The United Earth Government hereby announces its immediate withdrawal from all Galactic Council affairs and associated treaties," Miller stated, his voice clear and firm. "This is effective as of this moment." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated voices and artificial sounds. The premier speaker's skin shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of extreme agitation. "Point of order." Several voices shouted through their translation devices. "This is not the proper procedure." Miller continued speaking, his voice somehow cutting through the chaos. "All human citizens have been instructed to return to Earth-controlled space. All our outposts, trading stations, and diplomatic missions are being evacuated as we speak. We thank the Council for its past cooperation." The human delegation turned as one and began walking toward the chamber's main exit. The Council's security forces, mostly robotic drones, moved to block their path but stopped when Miller held up a small credential card. "Our diplomatic immunity remains in effect for the next standard hour," he stated. "Any attempt to prevent our departure will be considered an act of war." The security drones backed away. In the growing pandemonium, several high-ranking council members rushed down from their pods, trying to reach the humans before they left. Ambassador Miller called out the trade minister, his tentacles waving in distress. "This is madness. You cannot simply leave. What about our contracts? The joint projects?" Miller paused at the doorway, turning slightly. "All necessary documentation has been transmitted to your offices. You'll find everything in order, including compensation for terminated agreements." The science minister pushed forward. "But the research stations, the technology exchanges, you can't just abandon everything." "We can, and we are," Miller replied. His voice softened slightly. "You might want to check those research stations carefully. You'll find we've left detailed instructions for maintenance and operation. Whether you can understand them is another matter." The human delegation stepped through the doorway. The last thing the council saw was Ambassador Thompson pausing to place a small data crystal on a nearby pedestal. "A parting gift," she said. "You might find it enlightening in a few months." The doors sealed behind them with a final hiss. In the following hours, the council chamber descended into chaos. Emergency sessions were called. Urgent messages were sent to Earth. Every communication was met with the same automated response. "Thank you for your message. Earth is no longer accepting diplomatic communications. All inquiries will be addressed through automated channels." As night fell on the council world, the human embassy stood empty, its windows dark. Security cameras caught the last transport ship lifting off just before sunset, carrying the final human personnel. The only thing left behind was a simple sign on the door: "Closed permanently." In orbit, the massive human diplomatic vessel disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind thousands of confused and frightened council members who were just beginning to realize that perhaps they had never really understood their human allies at all. The first day of Earth's withdrawal had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The trading post on Station Beta 7 was unusually quiet that morning. Tom Baker, the human station manager, stood watching his staff methodically shutting down systems and packing equipment. They had received the evacuation order 6 hours ago, and the efficiency of their response would have made any military commander proud. "Sir, the last shipment of quantum processors has been loaded," reported his assistant. "We're ahead of schedule." Tom nodded, looking at the alien merchants gathering outside the station's main human shopping district. Their faces showed various signs of confusion and worry as they watched humans quickly closing shops and sealing storage units. "What about the medical bay?" Tom asked. Dr. Wilson left complete care instructions for all current patients and transferred them to the station's alien medical staff. She also left behind a year's supply of human-made medicines. In other parts of the galaxy, the same scene was playing out thousands of times. Human mining operations on distant moons were going dark. Research stations were being evacuated. Military outposts were disappearing without a trace. On the resort world of Paradise 3, famous for its golden beaches and triple moons, the massive human tourist population seemed to vanish overnight. Hotels reported mass checkouts. Restaurants and entertainment venues owned by humans shut their doors. The local economy, heavily dependent on human visitors, crashed within hours. The alien dock workers at Frontier Station watched in amazement as an entire fleet of human cargo ships jumped into hyperspace simultaneously. The ships had been loaded in record time, taking with them technologies and resources that many hadn't even known were there. An alien news reporter, broadcasting live from the Centauri Trade Hub, tried to make sense of the situation. "We're seeing unprecedented movement of human ships across all sectors. Early estimates suggest that over 90% of human assets have already been evacuated from non-Earth space. The speed and coordination of this withdrawal is, frankly, terrifying." At the edge of known space, a small research team of alien scientists watched their human colleagues pack up their equipment. The head scientist, Professor Green, handed them a thick manual. "Everything you need to know about maintaining the quantum field generator is in here," he said kindly. "Though I doubt you'll understand most of it for at least a few decades." The alien scientists chittered nervously among themselves. One of them stepped forward. "But why? Why are you all leaving?" Professor Green just smiled sadly and boarded his ship. In the corporate sectors, alien business leaders were having emergency meetings. Human-owned companies had simultaneously transferred all their shares to alien holdings at prices far below market value. The massive sell-off was causing market chaos, yet somehow the transactions were perfectly legal and properly documented. A junior alien analyst, reviewing the data, made a startling discovery. "Sir," he called to his superior, "these transfers, they were prepared months ago. The humans, they planned this." The Galactic Council's emergency response team was tracking the exodus with growing alarm. Their latest reports showed that human withdrawal was nearly complete, having taken less than 24 hours. Centuries of human presence in the galaxy were being erased with frightening precision. At the last human diplomatic outpost in the Outer Rim, Ambassador Roberts spent his final minutes deleting files. Through his window, he could see alien security forces gathering, probably planning to storm the building once the diplomatic immunity expired. He smiled, knowing they would find nothing of value. His computer chimed. The last transport was ready. As he walked to the landing pad, he passed rows of empty offices. Each bore a small plaque. "Humanity thanks you for your cooperation. Goodbye." The transport lifted off just as the immunity expired. Below, alien forces rushed into the empty building, finding only blank screens and powered-down systems. In the ship's cabin, Roberts watched the outpost shrink into the distance. His communicator showed the latest status: 99.9% of human presence eliminated from foreign space. The exodus was nearly complete. "They still don't understand, do they?" asked his pilot. Roberts shook his head. "They will. Soon enough. The transport vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy it was just beginning to realize how much it had depended on its human members. And somewhere in Earth's heavily guarded solar system, something massive was being built. In the dimly lit analysis chamber of the Galactic Council's Intelligence Division, Senior Analyst Reed, an ancient being made of pure energy contained in a metallic frame, stared at the holographic displays with growing concern. Data streams flowed around him, revealing patterns that should have been obvious months ago. "Play it again," he commanded the computer system. "Show me the human purchasing records from the last 5 years." The display shifted, showing countless transactions across the galaxy. At first glance, they seemed normal, typical human trading behavior. But when viewed together, a disturbing pattern emerged. "Stop," Reed ordered. "Highlight all purchases of quantum-grade titanium." The display lit up with thousands of points of light. Each represented a seemingly innocent purchase by different human companies. Individually, they were unremarkable. Together, they showed humans had quietly acquired enough titanium to build a fleet larger than the entire Galactic Defense Force. Now overlay the energy crystal acquisitions. Another pattern appeared. Humans had been buying massive amounts of power generation materials, always keeping each purchase just below the level that would trigger Council oversight. In another section of the Council's vast headquarters, Technology Inspector Davis, a crystalline being, made an equally disturbing discovery. He had been reviewing maintenance logs from joint human-alien projects. "Chief Inspector," he called out, his crystal form flickering with anxiety. "I found something in the human technical documentation." The Chief Inspector floated over. "What is it?" "The humans. They were teaching us outdated technology. Look at these schematics they provided for the quantum drives. They're deliberately simplified, like teaching a child to count using fingers." Across the galaxy, similar revelations were surfacing. At a prestigious alien university, a professor was reviewing human scientific papers from the past decade. She noticed that human research had become increasingly basic, publishing only simple findings. The groundbreaking discoveries had quietly stopped years ago. In the Military Intelligence Division, Commander Black, a massive insectoid being, assembled his findings for an emergency briefing. The holographic display showed human military exercises from recent years. They were holding back, he clicked to his subordinates. Every war game, every joint exercise, they were operating at maybe 30% of their capability. "We thought we were their equals. We were wrong." A junior analyst rushed into the chamber, his tentacles writhing with excitement. "Commander, we've decoded some of their construction records. The humans, they've been building something massive in their home system for years." The commander examined the new data. Deep space scans showed enormous energy signatures from the Sol system, far larger than anything previously recorded. The humans had somehow hidden these readings until now. In the Council's Economic Division, the truth was equally shocking. A team of analysts had discovered that humans had been secretly advancing their automation technology. The factories and farms they'd abandoned were the old ones. Their real production facilities had been moved to Earth space long ago. "Look at these efficiency ratings," one analyst said, pointing to a chart. "Their actual manufacturing capability is at least 10 times what they showed us. Maybe more." Reed, still in his analysis chamber, made one final discovery. He found a buried report from 50 years ago. A human warning about a threat approaching from outside the galaxy. The Council had dismissed it as paranoid speculation. He cross-referenced the warning with the humans' recent activities. Everything. The resource gathering, the hidden technological advances, the subtle withdrawal preparations. It all pointed to one conclusion. They had been preparing for something. Something big. Reed's metallic frame hummed with concern as he prepared his report for the Council. The humans hadn't just fooled them. They had orchestrated the greatest deception in galactic history. While acting like junior partners in the galactic community, they had been quietly advancing far beyond anyone's expectations. And now they were gone. leaving behind a galaxy full of races who were just beginning to understand how badly they had underestimated their human allies. In the council chambers above, the emergency meetings continued, but Reed knew it was too late. The humans had shown them exactly what they wanted to show, nothing more. The real question was, what hadn't they shown? The great trading hall of Central Station echoed with angry shouts as merchants from a dozen species argued over rapidly rising prices. Where human goods had once filled the shelves, empty spaces now gaped like missing teeth. A group of merchants huddled around a crate containing the last known supply of human medical nanobots in the sector. 1 million credits, shouted a merchant, his scales flashing with desperation. 2 million, countered another, tentacles waving. In the station's engineering section, Chief Engineer White, a crystalline being, stared at the failing power core with mounting horror. The human technicians had maintained it for so long that no one else knew how it truly worked. Now, without their expertise, systems were beginning to fail. Try bypassing the secondary matrix, he suggested to his team. We can't, responded his assistant. The bypass codes, they were in the human computer systems, the ones they took with them. Similar scenes played out across thousands of stations and colonies. Technology that everyone had taken for granted was revealing its secrets, or rather, its dependencies on human knowledge. In the military command center of the Galactic Council, alarms blared as another defense platform went dark. The massive screen showed red dots spreading across the galaxy map, each representing a failed system. Status report, demanded the Supreme Commander, his metallic body vibrating with stress. Sir, 30% of our automated defense networks are offline, reported an officer. The humans, they built in maintenance protocols that only they understood. Without them, how long until total system failure? At current rates, 2 months, maybe less. The economic impact was even worse. The Galactic Stock Exchange had suspended trading after markets crashed for the 3rd consecutive day. Industries that had relied on human innovation were collapsing. Companies that had used human technological solutions found themselves unable to maintain their operations. In a luxury office high above the capital city, the trade minister met with the heads of the largest corporations in the galaxy. The mood was grim. Our best analysts estimate a 40% drop in galactic GDP within 6 months, reported one executive, his holographic form flickering with distress. Without human trade and technology, entire industrial sectors are failing. Can't we replicate their technology? Asked another. We've tried. Their devices, they're like puzzles within puzzles. We can use them, but we can't understand them. Not really. Political fractures were appearing in the Galactic Council itself. Species that had maintained closer ties with humans were being courted by others desperate for any remaining human technology or knowledge. Ancient alliances were breaking as fear spread. In the Council's great library, researchers made another disturbing discovery. They found that humans had been systematically downloading and removing vast amounts of data from galactic databases over the past year, but they had done it so carefully, so gradually, that no one had noticed. They took everything, whispered the head librarian, her ethereal form dimming with shock. All our research on their species, all their contributions to our knowledge, gone. The Council's diplomatic corps was in chaos. Member species were demanding action, but no one knew what action to take. Some called for military intervention in human space. Others warned that antagonizing the humans would be suicide. We don't even know what they're capable of anymore, argued one diplomat. Everything we thought we knew about their military capability was apparently a fraction of their true power. In a secret meeting room, the Council's Security Committee reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The humans hadn't just withdrawn. They had systematically dismantled every connection, every dependency, every link they had with the rest of the galaxy. It's like they're preparing for something, mused one member. Something big enough to make them abandon centuries of galactic integration. As night fell on the capital world, the mighty towers of the Galactic Council glowed with emergency lights. Inside, leaders argued and planners scrambled. But the truth was becoming clear to everyone. The humans hadn't just been partners in galactic civilization. They had been its hidden foundation. And now that foundation was gone, leaving behind a galaxy that was starting to crumble. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was coming. Something that only the humans seemed to have seen coming. The patrol ship Star Seeker drifted at the edge of human-controlled space, its sensors extended to maximum range. Captain Gray, a veteran of the Galactic Defense Force, studied the readings with growing disbelief. "Run the scan again," he ordered his science officer, a being of pure light. "Sir, this is the 5th time. The readings are consistent." The officer's light form pulsed with excitement. "The energy signatures from the Sol system, they're off the scale." The ship's main display showed a visualization of Earth's solar system. Where once there had been 9 planets and scattered asteroids, now there was something else entirely. The entire system pulsed with artificial energy signatures. "Magnification on Mars," Gray commanded. The red planet appeared on screen, but it was barely recognizable. Massive structures covered its surface, their purpose unknown. Energy beams connected various points on the planet, forming a web of light that pulsed with power. What about Venus? The screen shifted. The toxic planet was surrounded by enormous platforms, each bigger than a small moon. They seemed to be processing the planet's atmosphere, but for what purpose? In the ship's conference room, the senior staff gathered to analyze the findings. Lieutenant Smith, the tactical officer, pointed to a series of readings from Jupiter. "They've built something inside the gas giant," he explained. "The energy output suggests some kind of harvest operation. They're drawing power directly from the planet's core." The communications officer interrupted with urgent news. "Sir, we're picking up transmissions. Encrypted, but the volume is enormous. There's more data flowing through the Sol system than in the rest of the galaxy combined." Gray studied a holographic model of the system. Mercury had been completely dismantled, its materials presumably used for the massive construction projects. The asteroid belt was gone, replaced by a series of shipyards that stretched for millions of kilometers. "What about Earth itself?" he asked. The image zoomed in on humanity's homeworld. A massive shield of energy surrounded the planet, making detailed scans impossible. But the visible surface was covered in lights, suggesting unprecedented levels of development. "Sir," the science officer called out, his light form practically vibrating. "We're detecting technology that shouldn't be possible. The humans have somehow mastered gravitational manipulation, zero-point energy. And, sir, they might have cracked dimensional engineering." The bridge fell silent. These were technologies that the Council had deemed theoretically impossible. A junior officer rushed onto the bridge. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up movement near Saturn." The display shifted again. Near Saturn's rings, something massive was under construction. It dwarfed anything the officer had ever seen, making the largest Council space station look like a toy in comparison. "Get me a size comparison," Gray ordered. The computer displayed the object next to standard measurement markers. The structure was larger than Earth's moon. "Whatever they're building," the tactical officer noted, "it's nearly complete. Energy readings suggest it could be operational within months." Gray sat back in his command chair, processing the implications. The humans hadn't just been advancing their technology. They had completely revolutionized it. Everything the Council thought it knew about physics, engineering, and energy production was apparently just the beginning. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted again. "We're detecting similar construction projects in nearby star systems. The humans, they've expanded beyond Sol. They're building something massive, a network of some kind." The tactical officer's voice shook slightly. "Captain, based on these readings, what they've built in just their home system alone could probably defeat the entire Galactic Defense Force." Gray stared at the massive structures floating in space, monuments to human ingenuity and determination. Everything they were seeing had been built in secret, while the rest of the galaxy thought humans were their technological inferiors. "Send the data to command," he ordered, "and add a personal note. Whatever made the humans leave the council, whatever they're preparing for, it must be far more terrifying than anything we could imagine." The Starseeker turned and headed back to council space, leaving behind a solar system transformed beyond recognition by human hands. The message arrived simultaneously at every communication terminal in the galaxy. Emergency broadcast systems activated automatically. Entertainment channels went dark. Even personal devices displayed the same thing: a simple human face against a black background. Admiral Smith of the United Earth Fleet spoke clearly and calmly, his words translated perfectly into every known language. "To all sentient species of the galaxy, this is Earth. For centuries, we have lived among you, traded with you, and learned from you. Today, we break our silence to tell you why we left." In the Galactic Council chamber, thousands of representatives watched in stunned silence. The massive screen showed the human admiral's face, his expression grave but not unkind. 350 years ago, our long-range sensors detected something approaching from beyond the galactic rim. We brought this information to the Council. Our warnings were dismissed as paranoid speculation. The image shifted to show deep space readings. A massive dark mass moved between the stars, consuming everything in its path. "This entity is not like anything we have encountered before. It devours entire star systems. It learns, it adapts, and it is hungry. We estimate it will reach the outer edges of our galaxy within 5 years." Panic erupted in trading centers across the galaxy. The stock markets, already unstable from the human withdrawal, crashed completely. The Admiral continued, "We chose to withdraw and prepare alone because the Council's bureaucracy would have delayed decisive action. Every attempt we made to warn you was met with dismissal or ridicule, so we adapted our strategy." The screen showed images of the transformed Sol system, revealing the true purpose of the massive construction projects. "What you see is humanity's response to this threat. We have built a network of defensive systems and evacuation centers. We have developed weapons that can harm the entity. We have prepared safe zones that can shelter billions." In military command centers across the galaxy, officers watched with growing horror as human technical data scrolled across their screens, showing the true scope of the threat and humanity's preparations. "We now extend an offer to all species of the galaxy. Our defenses can protect you. Our shelters can save your people, but we have terms." The Admiral's face returned to the screen, his expression firm. "First, you must acknowledge human leadership in this crisis. We will not waste time debating with the Council while the entity approaches. Second, you must share all your technological and scientific knowledge. No secrets, no holding back. Third, you must commit your resources and people to the common defense under human coordination. To those who accept, we offer sanctuary and protection. To those who refuse, we wish you luck." In the Council chamber, representatives began shouting over each other. Some demanded immediate acceptance of the human terms. Others called it a trick, a human plot for domination. The Admiral's final words cut through the chaos. "You have 1 standard month to decide. Each species may choose independently. When the entity arrives, it will not care about your politics or your pride. It will only hunger. For those who wish to accept our offer, transmit your response on the following frequency. Transport ships will be provided to evacuate your people to safe zones. To the Council, your dismissal of our warnings forced this situation. We hold no grudge, but we will not subject ourselves to your authority again. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Earth out." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in chaos. Across thousands of worlds, people looked to their leaders for guidance. Ancient rivalries were forgotten as species faced the choice between pride and survival. In the Council chamber, the premier speaker called for order, but it was useless. Centuries of political alliance were crumbling as species broke away to accept the human offer. Meanwhile, In Earth's transformed solar system, massive ships were already being prepared for evacuation missions. Humanity had made its offer. Now they waited to see who would be wise enough to accept it. And in the darkness between galaxies, something hungry continued its approach, unaware that its next meal had teeth. The council chamber, once a symbol of galactic unity, now stood half empty. Empty seats marked the species that had already accepted humanity's offer. The remaining representatives argued bitterly among themselves, their unity shattered by fear and pride. The Trade Federation accepts Earth's terms, announced another representative, standing to leave. We will not let pride doom our people. The premier speaker watched helplessly as more delegates departed. In just 3 weeks, over 60% of council species had accepted human protection. The latest deep space scans, showing the entity's approach, had triggered a fresh wave of defections. In orbit around Earth, massive refugee ships arrived constantly. The humans had transformed Jupiter's larger moons into processing centers, where arriving species were organized and relocated to prepared habitats. Administrator Walker supervised the arrival of another group of refugees. On his display, the numbers kept climbing. 50 billion evacuees processed, with hundreds of billions more en route. The Merchants Alliance ships are next, his assistant reported. Their entire population, about 12 billion, chose to evacuate. Walker nodded, watching the massive ships approach. The humans had planned for this, building habitats suited for every known species. Even now, construction ships were creating more space, using technology that reshaped matter at the atomic level. Back in the council chamber, the military committee made its final report. Without the species that have joined the humans, our combined forces are reduced by 70%. The committee head announced grimly, "We cannot mount an effective defense alone." Some of the remaining representatives still refused to accept reality. The Ancient Ones, a species that had been among the galaxy's first spacefaring civilizations, led the opposition. "We will not bow to these upstart humans," their leader declared. "We have survived for millions of years without their help." But even as they spoke, more representatives quietly gathered their things and left. The scans didn't lie. The entity was coming, and only the humans seemed prepared to fight it. In human space, the defensive preparations continued. The massive structure near Saturn was now complete, a weapon of unprecedented power, designed to harness the energy of an artificial quantum singularity. Fleet Admiral Jones reviewed the latest defense plans with representatives from the species that had joined them. The aliens were stunned by the sophistication of human military technology. "Your ships, they're centuries ahead of anything we have," admitted a former council military leader. "We showed you what we wanted you to see," Jones replied simply. "Now let's discuss your role in the defense plan." As the deadline approached, the council made one final attempt to assert its authority. They sent a message to Earth, demanding the humans return to council control and share their technology. The human response was brief. "The time for demands is over. Choose." In the final days, the exodus became a flood. Entire civilizations packed up and fled to human space. The council chamber grew quieter each day as more seats emptied. Some species, driven by pride or ancient grudges, still refused to leave. They fortified their worlds and declared they would face the entity on their own. On the last day, Administrator Walker received the final count. 85% of all council species had accepted human protection. The remaining 15% had chosen to stand alone. In the now nearly empty council chamber, the few remaining representatives watched their final sunset together. Their mighty civilization, built over millions of years, had been humbled not by war or disaster, but by the realization that their youngest members, the humans, had quietly become their only hope for survival. As night fell on the council world, the last human transport ship lifted off, carrying those who had made their choice in the final hours. Behind them, the proud remnants of the old order waited for what was coming. And in human space, surrounded by the greatest collection of refugee ships in galactic history, humanity prepared for the fight of their lives. They had saved as many as they could. Now came the hard part, living up to their promises and facing the darkness that was coming to devour them all. The entity approached, hungry as ever, unaware that its next meal had united under the most unlikely of guardians, humanity.